Hello, my name is John Mayer, and I'm the Executive Director of CALI, the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. The video you are about to watch is from the annual CALI conference held at the University of Michigan School of Law in Ann Arbor, Michigan on June 4th and 5th, 2026. Most U.S. law schools are members of CALI. CALI publishes over 1,400 interactive tutorials that teach the law to law students. Faculty can also use LessonLink to create formative assessments using CALI lessons. CALI publishes casebooks by paying law faculty to write and review books that can be adopted in many courses in law school. These books are free to download from our website, or print versions can be purchased at near cost. You can download the PDFs or even the Microsoft Word versions of most of our books and add your own commentary before distributing to your students. $300 casebooks are a thing of the past, and adopting one book from CALI saves you more than your entire institutional membership. If you would like to learn more, email me at jmayer@cali.org. I would be happy to visit or zoom into your school to talk about CALI.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our session. I'm Heidi Frostestead. I'm Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Information Services at Northern Illinois, and you know our esteemed.
I'm Greg.
Yes.
And I will primarily be commenting on what Heidi discusses, and then we'll both be here to have a dialogue and interact with you.
Yes, perfect. So a bit about my background. I am a law librarian at heart. I came from the law library as a law library director at Northern Illinois, and then I assumed the role of Associate Dean for Academic Affairs a few years ago. So I'm here to share some of my experiences spearheading AI initiatives and getting faculty to collaborate and getting towards a meeting of the minds, but as we all know, that sometimes takes a bit of time to get that scaffolding. Thank you to CALI for selecting me to participate, and I look forward to the conversation. So I think the current tensions that we're seeing in law schools are the tensions on when to use AI. From my seat as academic dean, I've had to investigate, police, which, as many of you have probably experienced, seems like an effort and it's a futile effort. So getting policies developed as the technology is advancing at a rapid rate is really the most fruitful way, I think, to address AI use, and making sure that we have clear policies in law schools to direct students on good uses and bad uses. And also infusing AI across the curriculum. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've infused AI in my courses, as well as some of my colleagues in legal writing and in doctrinal courses. And so when you think about AI more as a law school tool in the toolbox, support students in their endeavors to become practicing lawyers who will be using this technology. As we all know, many firms are utilizing custom GPTs. They're creating their own habitats of either Claude, Harvey, and other tools, making sure that students are proficient when they get into practice, which really has been our age-old concern anyway. So how do we go from here now that we have this advancing technology, I think, is key. So we've been surveying students, seeing where they're at, and meeting them where they're at so that they become adept researchers, which we've always done as law librarians, right, and legal writing professors, but I think making sure that they're equipped to be ethical lawyers in this AI habitat, which a lot of sessions I know are addressing. One thing that we've noticed is just an awareness. What are they thinking about when they begin research? So the rules of ethics kind of driving home that confidentiality is key, especially in the clinical setting. We have several clinics, for example. So with our business clinic, when there's financial information at play, making sure that law school academic manuals are updated, making sure we infuse the right steps for good hygiene, for good lawyering. And then also considering the human aspects of lawyering. And I know a lot of sessions are talking about that. How do we make sure they're grounded and thinking like a lawyer? How do we scaffold the curriculum is important. Most of the cases that come to me as academic dean revolve around the student handbook or the honor code. So when I look at those cases, typically we look at what is allowable, what is not, why do we have these rules? It's really shaking up how we think about the rules and how we're liaising and conversing with faculty to make sure that they're aware of how the technology actually works. So making sure that we have retreats as faculty to keep current and making sure that they're understanding the GPT tools and what's allowable. We've also had to address hallucinations, plagiarism on our law review, on our moot court. You've probably had instances as well where students are using custom GPTs to write papers. So this has crossed my desk where there's hallucinated citations, they're not aware, and of course, obviously contrite in the meetings with me that they didn't realize that they created this whole file in a custom GPT and didn't realize how it was searching. So having law review footnotes that don't exist, having cases that don't exist is problematic, and there are 2 L's or 3 L's by that point. So how do we make sure that all of our student activities and all submitted work product is reaching that professional capacity? So what we've done to react is create those clear policies, making sure that faculty advisors of law review have the clear training, which is evolving as the tech is evolving. So we can do that from our seats as law library directors, obviously, or as academic deans. But I think we started at a more reactive point, but now we're getting to be more collaborative, at least at NIU. We're getting all the faculty on board to adhere to some of these policies on what's good use and what's bad use. And that has been in a process. It took time, right? Because there's that disconnect between the foundational core skill development and there's a voice there on the faculty, at least on our faculty. I think a lot of faculties, it's hard getting buy-in from doctrinal faculty on when is a good use for good information versus a bad use. And so some of the drafting courses are now incorporating AI use, as we heard about this morning. There's some wonderful AI drafting tools at play, and then considering subscriptions through the law library for Claude or custom GPT use. You need the heightened subscriptions to get the full value add. So thinking about what will your suite of AI look like at your law school, I think is really important. And then also thinking about custom GPT tutors. We've had faculty now with interests, and myself included, with developing custom GPT tutors who can help aid after hours some of the core topical content development, which can be really helpful for students who are struggling. It helps lift up the class, as we heard about this morning. And then thinking about what should our seminar requirement be? What should our learning outcomes be? And how do we weave AI, generative AI into that process? And I think the understanding of generative AI and the tools really varies based on the student background. So what I've done in Law and Technology, the course that I teach, is do a survey and make sure I'm meeting students where they're at when they come into the course, because they'll have to build a custom GPT. Some have varying familiarity with the custom GPT. So thinking about which tools would help them, meeting with them to discuss which tools would be the best tools based on their background and availability. So thinking about innovation after understanding where they're at, and then assessing after the fact how far they've come and when, making sure they understand when the best use is for the custom GPT use. One struggle we've had as a faculty when discussing generative AI is that obviously some faculty are not keen on infusing generative AI because a lot of schools, as you've seen recently with the Berkeley policy, other policies being released, there's a blanket ban, right? And then it's up to faculty to then decide on individual exceptions. That's how our policy is written at NIU, except for legal research. Obviously, those platforms like Westlaw, Lexis, Bloomberg incorporate generative AI. So we do allow those uses. But where can we make exceptions? Where, as a faculty, can we decide that there's a consensus to incorporate AI has been a struggle. And the one success that we've had is through the curriculum committee, and I'm a co-chair, so that helps me get ideas through the curriculum committee. But that's a struggle on most faculty from what I've heard, that getting generative AI and getting a curricular plan for generative AI may have hiccups unless you have buy-in and go office to get faculty buy-in. So one thing we are on board with, and I've liaised with the professional responsibility professors with, is the ethical uses. So looking at what are the fortes of AI, what are the deficits, making sure we have clear instruction and scaffolding for those ethical rules. The other areas with legal research and writing and the doctrinal courses are infusing generative AI to show the retrieval. And some of our newer faculty, like in crim law, are showing, well, let's do a prompt, in generative AI, and let's show a prompt and see if the retrieval is accurate, and doing that throughout the course and analyzing how we can improve that, right? So finding fruits of the generative AI, and that's really important to show some of the analytical deficits, like if you put in crim law, is it stealing from a book, if you take a book from a little free library or something like that. Showing how ChatGPT doesn't always give you the right answer. So looking at some of the code courses and designing the curriculum to infuse generative AI and analyze information outputs is really key to show students how they'll have to frame a memo in practice and how would you weave in some of that information. That's key. So that's how we've been broaching the issue. It may vary from law school to law school based on cost. We're an access school, so we've actually collaborated with Wickard. We have some of the tools, Claude and ChatGPT, obviously. But we have students practice in the context of their course specifically. And we have built courses. We now have AI and legal writing as a course to actually have the whole course devoted to incorporating generative AI into the legal writing process. And then we've also liaised with our university libraries to have generative AI sessions. So we have a lot of cross-departmental programs, 3+3 programs. So we're trying to build the stepping stones to law school, making sure they're having that kind of use of AI and good use before law school. So which skills are a natural fit? I think we created a checklist at a faculty retreat and talked about implementation, timelines, how we design courses. Having those conversations throughout the year was really important for us so that we have goals as to when we'll implement in a curricular standpoint. And that varies. I know every law school has different timelines for incorporating curricular advancements, but this one seemed especially vital considering all of the students coming to either the Dean of Students or the Dean of Academic Affairs. We were having this constant conversation about when is use allowable, and I think our duty as law schools is really to make sure that we're providing good grounding and footing and showing them how that technology works. So the one way that we found is explaining the technology and making sure the faculty understand the technology, the students understand the technology. The 1L year, as was discussed this morning, is kind of problematic because they don't know all the core terminology yet. So we do kind of a graduated approach in legal research. And then in legal writing, teaching the core writing skills before creating the custom GPT is what our legal writing faculty have actually developed. And also discussing the importance of not copying, right? Source authentication, plagiarism has really increased in my office. So talking about diligent review and that having good hygiene with reviewing AI outputs is key. So a few examples, and one of my colleagues said I had permission to share this, so she developed an appellate writing custom GPT. So it's called Oye Oye as a tutor, so you can really upload the appellate brief sources, right? And it was the first time she had designed it. It was an iterative process, right? But imagine how powerful it is preparing for your first appellate argument with a custom GPT tutor. And hers is called Judge Mission because at NIU our husky mascot is Mission. So she actually framed it using that. And she had back and forth practice. She had full voice simulation. So she refined it through that iterative process of going back and forth and giving feedback. And at the end, what cases did they miss? What arguments could be improved? So you can see what, after refining this with her TA in the course, seeing how much fun it was for students. They really loved it. She got really positive feedback. And making sure they also got that practice in a low pressure environment that they needed. So I think we're going to see this really blossom into a method of instruction, as we saw this morning, through a similar tutor mechanism, especially for introverted students who don't always, they want to have their private room to practice, and they get some judicious feedback as well through the tailoring. So she's actually writing an article on this, so if you're curious, I can share that. But that's just one example that we're trying to innovate within the curriculum. The other is comparing the generative tools, which I do in law and tech, and our legal writing faculty do that as well, because it's imperative, I think, to think about these tools and the robust feedback that they provide side by side, and as always, kind of infusing the best legal information for the judge. As we saw from some of the statistics with the federal courts and state courts recently, not all judges are using AI. Some fear some of the fortes of it versus deficits. So I think that will slowly evolve and we'll see the landscape change. But I think law firms definitely are using it. So making sure our students are grounded in the tools that they'll see for practice is really, really the key goal of the day. We also in Illinois have guidance from the ARDC. I've been kind of on a talking circuit with the Chicago Bar this year, the ARDC, I spoke with the ISBA, gathering data as we always do about what is being used in practice, right? So having guidance. And what I think is really beautiful about the ARDC guidance for Illinois attorneys is that it provides the tech guidance as well, because I think what lawyers are afraid to ask is, how do these tools work, right? And often they're not getting answers to that question. So how does retrieval work? They're fascinated by it, but they may go to a seminar where it's not explained. So this has key core tech terminology. It has an appendix. It talks about some of the best policies. It also has a policy document for AI use in the law firm at the end. So I think every state is developing something similar. I know Florida, California, other states are now providing that really vital advice for attorneys. So I think we'll see more of that in the context of CLEs and other trainings. So going from here, I think what we're striving to do is develop learning outcomes as a core group. We're a smaller faculty, so we're able to go a little bit deeper and further than larger faculties who may not have that ability to reach consensus, but we are clearly setting out our policy, clearly creating goals to develop AI across the curriculum through AI and courses. And we have a chart of drafting those and implementing those, which I think is key for our students, and also access for our students who are often first gen and they need the extra technology training. We're also thinking about, based on some of the breaches we've seen in honor code violations, creating AI accountability officers. So this would be someone, a student who uses generative AI well, who could be embedded in law review or moot court to provide some oversight when the faculty member is really busy and juggling numerous committee assignments, for example. So thinking about that as a liaison to associate deans going forward. And then also we're going to have more faculty retreats to talk about some of the outcomes for the first year specifically, and getting really granular into what key, is it generative AI prompting, is it other skill sets that they need? And then looking at all syllabi and course materials to promote innovative we have now faculty awards for innovation. What will incentivize faculty to change their course and embrace this? It's a tricky issue that I've seen from my seat. But I think there's clear promise, and it's really necessary with next gen bar prep to create some of these chat GPT tutors. You can do custom GPTs. I'm hoping to do one for the fall for international business, just as a kind of tutor in my course. And then helping other faculty, collaborating between your associate deans, the law librarians. We are part of a quantum law initiative in Chicago, so we're also collaborating with some attorneys at Barnes and Thornburg to develop a quantum law course, and we're also collaborating with some of our other departments, so physics, computer science. We now have a cybersecurity certificate on campus, so thinking about other tech topics beyond generative AI has been really helpful for us. And then our campus also has an AI expert group and a working group, so I'm part of that, and some of our law librarians are as well. So making sure we have a seat at the table to help move the needle forward for training has been really fun from my seat. And I think that creating that culture of innovation, I think it's really an exciting time for legal education just going forward. So I wanted to share some of our preliminary projects. I'm sure there'll be more, but it's a fun time for all of us, I think, to go back to our institutions, spread kind of the way to best implement AI at our respective institutions. And I think I'll open it up to Gregory for additional. Yeah, sure.
So I'll just give 3 quick reactions to what Heidi said, and then we can open it up for questions. So I personally am anti-AI legislation. I think faculties spend too much time trying to police AI use and establish policies and investigate cheating and penalize the wrongdoer. I think even if students are not supposed to use AI, they use it. They use it, they use it, they use it. So I think there's two kinds of assessments. There's a kind of assessment where we cut off access to AI. It's a closed book exam. It's an exam which uses remote proctoring, so students can't use AI. So we either physically cut off access to AI, or we let them use AI. And we teach them and we train them how to use AI effectively and how AI use is ineffective. And we can even create higher expectations, because if the students can use AI, the students, at least the bottom half or the bottom 2/3, should be producing better work. So I think we spend too much time policy making and policing and not enough time figuring out how to teach the students how to use the tools. The second thing is, I think what I have found as a way to get other doctrinal faculty to use AI is these study buddies or custom chatbots or quiz generators. You know, I have a colleague who teaches business organizations, and he came up with this idea even before I started working with AI, but he calls them study buddies. Every unit, we start with agency. He puts the agency material into a chatbot, and there's a study buddy. So the students can ask questions and get answers, and vice versa. They can get review questions from the study buddy, and they can answer them. He has become immensely popular because he has that tool, and it's a tool that other faculty can replicate, and they don't have to do any work to create them. Because we now know how to create them. We have people who can create them. And we probably have 8 faculty that have some version of study buddies, and they all think they're the innovator. And they're not, because everyone's doing it. But that's the beauty in it. And that's where, you know, as I said this morning, I think AI has had an immediate impact. And as long as it's not impacting the grade, or it's not a graded assessment, faculty seem a lot more enthusiastic about incorporating it. And I haven't taught a seminar, but I've given a lot of thought to seminars. And we had a meeting at Mitchell-Hamlin of our seminar faculty, and they certainly all came down on they were going to prohibit AI, but of course they didn't know how they were going to police it. So I think we need, seminars is a great place to say students are going to use AI, and we need to let them use it. There are great research tools, which you're probably familiar with more than I am, enabling you to do, you know, deeper research across disciplines. There's good editing tools. And again, we can require better papers, because if AI produces a C paper or a B- paper, nobody should be handing in a paper that's that bad. So I think our expectations can go up. Our rubrics could be more specific. We want tighter writing and things that AI is not very good at. But I think that's a way to address the problem than banning AI use or investigating cheating. Now, I gave a take-home exam, and this was just left over from the pre-AI era. And I knew the students were going to use AI. I knew it. I was leaving Mitchell-Hamlin. I didn't want to police it. So I gave AI the exam. AI got a C+. I told the students, I said, a lot of you are going to use AI, and you'll get a C+. And if you want a C+, use AI. If you want to do better, use your human input. And, you know, a class of 65, 10 got their C+. It was obvious that AI produced it, and the other 55 did better. And I felt, okay, you know, at least we're all honest. Now, my commercial law exam, a student used AI, and AI produced a really, really bad answer. So I just gave them what they deserved. It was a D, you know. Rather than investigating it, it was clearly AI, because they had all sorts of notations that I didn't say in class. I knew I couldn't prove it. It was a D. So I think if we think students use AI, we give them the grade the work deserves. And I just think that allows us to spend more time on being educators and less time on being police. But I feel for Heidi, because our associate dean spends hours and hours and hours trying to figure out if a student used AI or not. And there's software to catch people, but the software is not exact. And as soon as we figure it out and we have these policies in place, we're going to need new policies because the AI becomes more sophisticated. So I think we should punt and acknowledge the students are going to use AI and just teach them how to use it effectively, because everyone's doing it. And if we, I think I did an anonymous survey in a class and said, how many of you use AI when you're not supposed to? And it was like 97%. And they do it. We just have to acknowledge it. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't train them to be ethical, but they don't see AI use as cheating when they're not supposed to. I'm not passing judgment on it, but students do not see that as cheating. They think we're cutting them off from a tool that they're going to have as lawyers, so they should be able to use it. They don't see it the same thing as copying a student's paper. All right, questions, comments, complaints? Oh, boy. Oh, go ahead.
Questions.
Heidi, can you talk more about the student survey and what kind of questions you asked?
Yes, so we ask what exposure they have to the various paid tools, what gradation, free, because obviously the free tools, you can't do the number of searches, and you have to have a more robust tool. And then also asking in what context. So what setting did you use it? What was your undergraduate major? So thinking about the habitat of use. And another thing we're seeing is recordings, and our faculty, the unauthorized use of recordings of class and creating notes out of it, and their IP rights, that's been a huge concern this past couple of years. So those are difficult issues that we've seen from an academic standpoint. Yeah. Oh, we do check for it, and I administer exams, so we did add that to the checklist for exams when those came out. We tipped off faculty. Some faculty weren't aware of the meta glasses, right? So when I told them, then they immediately, they started having an awareness of the glasses.
What do the glasses do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People bring them in. But some don't have cameras, and so they're incredibly visible to the people.
Right. And the ones that do have cameras are supposed to light up, but there's instructions all over the internet on how. Turn off the light.
Yeah. It's been a new landscape.
I have found that a lot of the pushback from certain faculty about AI and how it ruins the testing and everything else is largely because law faculty have not been required to dive into like pedagogy and best practices. And so they were just asking, like, it's forcing them to actually think about their course and whether the course is testing what they want to test, as opposed to testing whether a student can like recite the book verbatim, which obviously AI can do very well, you know what I mean, to some degree. So how do we like culture shift to better support and get faculty to really think about how they're teaching students? Because I agree with the policing thing. It's a ridiculous like shell game. But the problem is faculty don't really want to redesign their courses. They've had that course forever. They don't really care how well the test, proves, right, as a full assessment, right, formative or summative otherwise. So how do we really change that cultural shift in an environment like law school?
Yeah, my thoughts are, first of all, I think it's changed a lot since I started teaching. I mean, it's slow. It's slow. But I don't think, when I started teaching in 2008, I don't think, there might have been a handful of faculty that cared about pedagogy, and I think there's a lot more now. It's still very, very slow. But I don't think you're necessarily going to convert people And it's, one suggestion I had is there are things, you can do to supplement their teaching, like you put study buddies in and all of a sudden they're innovative. I know that's not, tracking learning outcomes as well as we might, but it's improvement. And, we use instructional designers. And instructional designers are experts in pedagogy. That's what we hire them to do. And a faculty member, says what they're trying to accomplish, and the instructional designer figures out how it works. And it's interesting, legal education, the faculty think they can do it themselves. But in other higher education disciplines, I mean, instructional design is an important field. And we bring in people who are paid well and they're experts in pedagogy and they're great. And they've thought a lot more about pedagogy than most law faculty. And they can help even the most reluctant, the most antagonistic law professor make their classes a bit more pedagogically sound. So we've bridged the gap by using pedagogical experts because I acknowledge what you're saying, faculty aren't going to do it themselves.
Yeah, I agree totally. We have a Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning, and they've been a good partner on campus with educating the faculty. I think also showing efficiencies and showing how it can save you time, like when, especially in trial ad or lawyering skills and courses where you had to coordinate all these witnesses and all of these pieces. Sometimes generative AI bots can help with that. Yeah, John.
Thank you. Very interesting conversations and continuing from the first set. So, first, a couple comments. First, a pitch. I'll be talking about the seminar class at the 1 o'clock session.
Oh, good.
And talking about AI resilience. There's many more options between the two. Come to what is purported to be my IP session. It's really a pedagogy session. Talking about AI. But two things that we did that got immediate feedback, buy-in across the institution, that I think are both worth considering. One is one of the first AI programs that we have a very robust program. One of the first programs that we did was a CLE, hybrid CLE, both live and online. That was for lawyers and law students, along with paralegals. What that did was send a really strong message to the faculty that our alumni and the bar cares about these skills. Turned out to be our biggest moneymaker of the year, and so reporting that back to the faculty brought a number of, oh, it's a fad, just say no, right, because suddenly it affected their hiring and their life. And so that brought a lot of people. The other thing that worked really well, I drafted our default AI policy, and the AI policy says it is plagiarism to not cite properly. You can't cite something that's variable, so therefore it's not citable, and therefore you can't use it just because that's the tool, right? It's not a question of value judgments, that's how the tool works. On the other hand, Grammarly, editing tools that are built into your software are professional competencies, and you must know how to use those tools. And I had dozens of students come back to me and thank me for the, essentially white card that said these are the tools you can use, and that preempted faculty saying Grammarly is AI and it's bad, explaining that all AI is not the same as every other AI. And so that brought a lot of students into the fold, and so we got rid of a lot of the under the table use, because the policy was really clear about what could and couldn't happen. And so we've actually had far less policing issues most of the law schools that I've talked to, simply because of those things.
Chatbots or study buddies for a school that recommend a good platform or resource, help a faculty member create.
Yeah, who wrote the first article on this? There's an article on it. He's now at ASU. Yeah, Sean Harrington wrote the article on how to create a chatbot, and I couldn't think of his name this morning, but he deserves credit for being the first one to write about it in legal education. So if you find his article, go step by step how to do it. Yeah, go ahead.
So in particular in like legal research instruction, well, how do you address the unpredictability of AI, especially in like live demos, or when you have multiple students doing, different prompts, even the same prompts could give you different results in the same AI tool. So how do you kind of hopefully proactively address that?
That's a great question, and I think it's the growth mindset and the dialogue with the AI bots, right? And that's something my faculty colleague, she wrote in her article, and what I've experienced as well is if you refine and improve the results, that's all part of the process with outputs. And actually my colleague, she designed hers with ChatGPT and said, she asked ChatGPT, how do I create this bot? And she was using it. It was her first time, and it was an iterative back and forth to refine the best results for that appellate advocacy bot.
Yeah, it's shocking to me. I do these Socratic chatbots, and it's 60 students have 60 completely different conversations, which to me is the beauty in it all, but it could create some uncertainty as well.
Two things. One random bit of like, hey, I want to create this, something June Liebert mentioned once, that like, if you don't know how to do something, don't have my create a prompt, ask your favorite LLM to create a prompt for you, and that's great. But question, one of the things that we keep seeing over and over again, I suspect the science is still out on this, is, overuse of AI leads to some kind of cognitive decline. Is that a concern? Is that something that people are worried about, not worried about? Are you balancing that somehow so that people understand what's an effective use versus where it might cause some cognitive issue later, which we don't know about yet?
We've had those conversations because of bar passage concerns. So much like when we scaffolded Westlaw and Lexis and print sources, I think it's the same conversation, right? When do we introduce this? Well, they have it now, so how do you control it? I think that's part of the curricular scaffolding, creating complex issues and having them use it to see some of the deficits as well. And
yeah, I don't think about that at all, except for my 12-year-old twins, where I think about it every day, but I probably should more.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not there yet.
I think we will have to grapple
Yeah,
with
I mean,
it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
2.0 for me.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think there are ways for students to use AI to edit more effectively and to work with another agent on a project. But I'm trying to I was trying to, for my benefit, because of my inexperience, I was just trying to establish a baseline. But this is why things are changing. So
Yeah.
in the year I spent building the course, now there's tools that the students could have done a better job than the tools I gave them. It's scary. I think it's scary because I think we can't keep up. So thank you for sharing that. And in a year, there's going to be another tool that we're not going to have thought of.
And law firms will be implementing. Yeah, you'll see staffing changes, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about high performers. Like you had mentioned, Gregory, that they were a bit resistant because it didn't seem to be helping them. And I've seen similar in, in studies that, like I just read a study out of University of Minnesota, I think, where like the highest performers actually went down when they used AI. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about if there's anything that would help them like level up, or if that's, I don't know, just curious if you have thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think the human mind in certain ways are stronger than AI, but it might be some of the tools like John was talking about, have them use Grammarly and have them use some tools that can improve their writing. But I just, if we're talking about writing an essay, a bar exam essay, I don't think AI is going to help these students. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some tools that can, but I think if a student's writing an A or A minus or a B plus essay, I don't think AI is going to help them. So I think we have to find other types of tools that they might benefit from.
Because I've had this issue in like my legal research classes where like sometimes the smartest students are bored because they work ahead and they know the material by the time they come into the room. And so like I've been thinking about like, is there anything I can do for them that would let them move to the next level?
Yeah, I think it's a great problem. That's a great question. And that's what all the research from the University of Minnesota, that's what they've shown. That the top either stays the same or goes down. Yeah.
I'm just curious, so one of the things that AI, so sorry, let me put this in the order that makes more sense. You mentioned how, right, like all of your students have completely different conversations with the chatbots, and that's like one of the excellent things is that like there can't be 60 of them already, like so afraid to go to office hours a lot of the time. I'm just really curious if in your experience, like maybe having the chatbot makes office hours feel less intimidating later, like because confidence, maybe hours attendance rates have dropped even further.
Well, I'm not a very social creature. And I don't like office hours and don't particularly like interacting with students one-on-one. It's not comfortable for me. I prefer to interact by email and in other ways. So I think it's been remarkable because students have had more access to assistance. That's not quite true. I'll meet with students, but the requests for one-on-one meetings has dropped considerably because they don't feel that they need as much, access to me. Now, I think it's a good thing because it's less one-on-one meetings. But if that's something that, if you enjoy the one-on-one teaching, AI does take a bit away from that. And I think you have to make that clear that you're still available and you still want to have those conversations.
I still have individual meetings and conversations, whether in person or virtually. And then I also have a capstone project where I have them orally present their papers. I think presenting skills are so important. So if they choose, they can do a video, but I still have that presentation. The bot is more of a coach, if you will, for that final capstone project.
Yeah, I should clarify before you think I won't talk to a student. If the students have questions about the material, they go to the bots for that. If there's just a disconnect, like the student just doesn't get what they're doing in law school, and that's very evident to me from looking at the bots, the only way to remedy that is to have an in-person conversation. And I have to say, look, Jack, you just don't get it. I'm a little more compassionate than that. What do we do about it? So those conversations, and especially in legal research and writing, when you're having conferences with the students and you think the conference is going to be talking about the writing and the conference ends up being about everything else that's going on in their lives, those are really, really important. So I don't think those go by the wayside, and a lot of students need that interaction to get, on the right track. But I don't think what is consideration again for the 19th time, I don't think they come for those kind of questions. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned how the students are using the Socratic thoughts and talking to it during part of the class time, and how you think that affects their sense of collaboration. And it might just be me, but one of the things I really valued in law school was not just learning from my professors and instructors, but learning from my fellow students. Wondering if promoting AI as an AI tool is going to make studies, less desirable. It's going to inhibit that feeling of we're all colleagues, we all need to work together as a matter of professional identity.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I'm, fairly mindful of that. So after they do the Socratic bots, the next thing they might do is they might break into groups and work on problems together because they benefit from working with each other. And some of the assignments, the AI assignments, they were allowed to work together and work in groups. So really, to cut down on the amount of time I had to spend in front of the class, first it would be the Socratic bots. Then they would meet with a group of classmates and do a hypothetical. And only then, when there's a half hour left, would we debrief the hypotheticals. And when they did the hypotheticals with each other, I told them they had to put their computers away because they had to focus on each other and the human interaction. I did make that point, that there's something to be gained by connecting with other people, developing relationships, and AI is not going to substitute for that. But I think that's a great point. This wasn't just go in a room and take the whole class and we'll see you at the end of the semester.
You mentioned a time or two that for what would have been historically lower performing students, this raised their performance, generally speaking. Have you experienced any resent from the top performing students that what would have been traditionally lower performing students aren't doing as bad anymore?
Yes. Top performing student comes in and says, we have AI that is going to destroy the curve. And I'm the best student in the class without AI. So what's going to happen when 60 students are as good as me? And I explain it doesn't work that way. So yes, I've explained exactly what I explained here, that AI might give the bottom of half of the class or the bottom 2/3 a boost, but that doesn't mean they're going to be producing A-level work, which you are going to be producing. And there is still a very broad curve. So I've not had that problem at all, but students suspected that. They said it's unfair. We have a curve. We're all going to get a B-. And I said it won't happen. And I was right, but I said that at the time, not knowing.
I just comment on that because we had the same feedback when we started grading legal possibility creation. You won't be able to curve this because it's a skills core. And you're a mandatory curve, and we said just one. And let me tell you, enough gradation to have a curve. So
Can you talk more about law school pedagogy is a disaster because there's only one exam at the end of the semester and you don't get any feedback until it's all over and it's too late. Can you explain how working with how a faculty is willing to work with an instructional designer to have, what do they do to not do that?
Yeah, I don't think we have any faculty member anymore who just gives an exam at the end of the semester. And I think
Yeah.
okay, I could be wrong, but I think most faculty at least have a midterm. And I think because these instructional designers, They have a whole laundry list of how you can assess. They can be quizzes, they can be oral arguments, they can be group work. I think faculty are given a repertoire of different kinds of activities that could, measure their learning outcomes, and I think they're open to trying them. Now, a lot of these faculty have taught it. What happens is a faculty teach our blended program, which is asynchronous except for the week on campus. And when we designed the program, we required faculty to have an assessment almost every week. And when these same faculty then went to teach a traditional class, they took that with them. And they were used to having those frequent assessments. So that might be why faculty are more likely to have multiple assessments.
Can I do one quick follow-up? The saddest email I ever got in my entire career is, our accreditation visit is coming up. You need to put your learning objectives in your syllabus. If you don't know what your learning objectives are, call the registrar.
Everyone used to say that Mitchell Hamlin has a good reputation for pedagogy, and I think we do. But when you have 6 full-time experts in pedagogy, and these are some of the most talented people I've ever worked with in legal education, it makes a big, big, big difference. And, I just worked with one of my instructional designers at Purdue on redesigning the contracts class. Just unbelievable people. They guide you through the whole process. So as long as you're willing to meet them, 10% of the way, they'll meet you 90%, and it really leads to a better outcome. All right, we have 1 more minute.
I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the relationship between bad pedagogy and curve. Because
And what's the word? What's the word?
pedagogy can be compatible with curve.
Bad pedagogy.
But one way in which I think bad pedagogy becomes impossible to ignore is if without a curve, the grades become nonsense. And I'm wondering, to what extent the practice of curving itself perpetuates the, pedagogical conservatism of legal instruction.
I think you're 100% right. At Purdue Global, we grade against the California bar exam, so everybody can get an A and everybody can fail. And I think it makes for much better pedagogy. And I think the faculty are much more invested in seeing every student succeed. Where I've had some of my colleagues say exactly, who cares the pedagogy's bad? It gives us a nice, spread at the end of the semester. So along with abolishing the regulation of AI, I'd also abolish the curve. And I think we should have outcomes. And if the students meet them, they meet them. And if they don't, they don't. And it would be a much better way of teaching. I think it's time for the next set of snacks.
Thank you.